Disney CEO Bob Iger, Rachel Zegler, and among others out there, have really been trying to go into damage control over this film as much as possible, and it's working to no avail.
It's hard to imagine a bigger public firestorm than the one swirling around Disney's live-action Snow White remake. In the midst of it all stands Rachel Zegler, once hailed as an exciting new talent, now synonymous with what some are calling the worst Disney debacle in decades. Rumors are rife that entire swaths of theaters, from smaller venues to well-known chains, have quietly pulled the movie from their schedules, some showtimes disappearing overnight without so much as a public announcement. Ticket sellers have reportedly seen near-empty auditoriums, and upset retailers are yanking Snow White merchandise off their shelves. This isn't just a middling performance at the box office, it's a complete breakdown of the trust between Disney and its loyal fans. The sense of betrayal is palpable, with social media lighting up in protest and longtime Disney enthusiasts openly wondering how the studio got it so wrong. At the same time, corporate insiders are scrambling to manage what feels like a runaway train, especially when rumors of canceled screenings and vanishing ticket listings keep popping up in more and more regions. If you think this is just another case of internet drama, think again. The backlash has rattled boardrooms, turned once supportive parents into vocal critics, and left Rachel Zegler stuck in the center of a controversy that shows no sign of slowing. It all begs the question, how did a cherished fairy tale and a promising young star end up in a crisis that might change the way Hollywood rethinks its most treasured stories? Back in 1937, Walt Disney took a massive gamble on a feature-length animated movie, a dream many deemed impossible. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs became the cornerstone of an empire, proving cartoons weren't just for kids, and that a heartfelt story could unify audiences of every generation. Over the decades, that legacy only grew stronger, woven into children's memories worldwide. The image of Snow White singing by the well with adorable woodland creatures isn't just iconic, it's practically mythic. People cherish Snow White not just because it was a commercial success, but because it represented the pinnacle of Walt Disney's original vision, to create stories that appealed to innocence, hope, and a wide-eyed sense of wonder. Whenever families popped in that VHS cassette or DVD, they expected a charming adventure, free from heavy political statements or cynical marketing angles. That's the memory people guard so fiercely. And that's precisely what the new film, with its attempt to modernize the narrative, seemed to jettison. Fast forward to today, and Disney's new Snow White was supposed to be another jewel in the live-action crown. Early hype suggested a visually stunning update with modern sensibilities, but rumors on social media hinted at big changes. The dwarfs might be gone, the prince's classic kiss removed, and the storyline entirely reimagined. Suddenly, fans were uneasy. Disney's track record with recent remakes hasn't been spotless, but messing with something as foundational as Snow White felt like a step too far. Then came word that theaters across the country were quietly dropping showtimes within days of the film's release. Influencers started posting screenshots of near-empty auditoriums and canceled screenings. Some rumored that certain venues barely sold enough tickets to justify the air conditioning, let alone staff wages. All the while, Disney tried to maintain a confident front, pushing promotional materials that promised a new twist on an old tale. Viewers, however, felt the magic had been replaced by marketing spin. This was no standard box office underperformance. It was a seismic clash over what fans expect from a beloved classic and what a major corporation thinks they should want. At the center of this storm is Rachel Zegler, a young actress who seemed poised for stardom after her breakout performance in West Side Story. From the moment her casting was announced, the conversation shifted from "who is she?" to "wow, what a massive opportunity." But as the promotional tour kicked off, Rachel took a direction no one anticipated. Instead of speaking reverently about how special it was to play Snow White, she went on the offensive, criticizing the original story as outdated, flat out dismissing the prince, and implying the 1937 version needed a complete overhaul to be relevant. Fans bristled at those comments. It's one thing to modernize a character. It's quite another to openly disparage what many consider an untouchable piece of movie history. Critics on social media pounced, accusing Rachel of arrogance and entitlement. When she joked about wanting more money for every hour spent wearing the iconic Snow White dress, the outrage escalated into a full-blown meltdown. Posts flooded in. "If you hate this role so much, why take it?" That single line resonated everywhere, from YouTube reaction videos to Twitter threads. Even as the backlash soared, Rachel doubled down. She liked tweets supporting her stance and dismissed calls for an apology. For many, she wasn't just criticizing a cartoon from the 1930s. She was disrespecting a cherished legacy while failing to connect with the audience who treasured it most. Suddenly, the controversy wasn't just about a remake. It was about one actress openly battling the fandom that made Disney magical in the first place. Few elements in Disney's animated canon are as iconic as the Seven Dwarfs. They each had their quirks, personalities, and comedic moments that won hearts for a generation. But in this remake, the dwarfs were all but erased. Early leaks showed a group of magical forest creatures, an odd mixture of backgrounds and heights, replacing the original characters. The official explanation hinted that Disney was avoiding outdated tropes. Detractors argued that by trying to avoid controversy, Disney actually created a larger one. Not only did it offend some in the dwarf acting community who missed out on a golden job opportunity, it also alienated fans who expected certain core elements of the original to stay intact. Then came the prince problem. In the classic, a chaste kiss symbolized love, hope, and the idea of a true romantic ending. Modern critics labeled it non-consensual, sparking debate over whether that moment should exist in 2023. Disney responded by removing the prince altogether, or at least minimizing his role to the point of near invisibility. What emerged was less of a fairy tale romance and more of a social statement. That alone might not have doomed the film. After all, times change and stories can evolve. Yet fans from across the political spectrum felt something essential was lost. The sweetness of a simple love story, replaced by an over-engineered plot that puts cynicism ahead of wonder. Behind the scenes, reports suggest Disney executives were in panic mode from the moment test screenings trickled back. Allegedly, focus group participants found the film preachy, boring, or simply confusing. Some watchers felt the movie spent more time delivering social commentary than celebrating the magic of a classic story. According to leaks, the marketing department scrambled to spin the negativity. The official line was that Snow White was a bold update for a new era, but fans weren't buying it. Rumors say Bob Iger was less than thrilled to discover the depth of the public's hostility. One insider claimed Top Brass believed any negativity could be drowned out by a slick PR campaign until it was too late. The $250 million budget was supposed to be a sure bet. How could a remake of Snow White possibly fail? Instead, it became the prime example of how quickly an audience can turn if they feel their nostalgia is being exploited or disrespected. Executives reportedly tried to salvage the project by re-editing certain scenes or reworking the marketing angle, but the damage was already done. The meme culture online was ruthless, churning out jokes faster than Disney could field them, and that negative momentum all but ensured the film was dead on arrival. When the film opened to dismal attendance, the ripple effect hit retailers and theaters hard. Merchandise tied to the movie began gathering dust. Several major chain stores quietly removed new Snow White stock from prime positions, relegating it to discount bins at 80% off. Independent shops followed suit, refusing to waste shelf space on products nobody was buying. Parents weren't clamoring for Snow White lunchboxes or costumes, kids weren't begging for related toys, and collectors who once snapped up Disney items stayed away. On social media, the hashtag Snow White flop trended, with users posting photos of empty cinema lobbies. Some people joked that the dwarfs weren't gone. They were simply the only 7 people who bought tickets. Memes depicted deserted theaters with captions like, "At least the popcorn's fresh." And it wasn't just snarky internet humor. For long-standing Disney loyalists, it felt like a betrayal. Had the studio not learned its lesson from past live-action misfires? Meanwhile, reviews poured in, calling the remake hollow and inauthentic. Critics questioned who the target audience was meant to be. Younger children struggled to follow the story's heavier themes, while teens and adults found it lecturing rather than enchanting. Hardcore Disney purists were outright offended. As more theaters dropped daily showtimes due to poor turnout, people began to wonder if the film might simply vanish from cinemas altogether. In many regions, that's exactly what happened, a slow but sure fade, as if theaters collectively decided to cut their losses. Amidst this chaos stands Rachel Zegler, inadvertently crowned the figurehead of the fiasco. Though she was hardly the only factor behind the film's downfall, her interviews became the face of fan frustration. Industry insiders say she might have been set up to fail, given a script and direction that put politics ahead of story. But to the viewing public, Her dismissive remarks came across as a direct attack on the original movie's cherished legacy, and therefore, on the fans themselves. There's talk in Hollywood about whether Rachel can bounce back. Her talent is undeniable, but the PR backlash has been enormous. Some say she needs a carefully chosen role in a smaller film to rebuild trust and showcase her genuine passion for acting. Others believe she'll be typecast as a cautionary tale, an actress who openly bit the hand that fed her. Publicly, Rachel appears unshaken. She continues liking tweets supporting her modern take, and she avoids apologizing outright. But behind closed doors, rumors suggest she's more rattled than she lets on. For a rising star, having this much negative press so early in a career can be devastating. The key question is whether she can reinvent herself before audiences permanently associate her with one of Disney's biggest misfires in modern memory. The Snow White remake was supposed to be a high point, a fresh retelling that tapped into the cultural zeitgeist. Instead, it morphed into a glaring example of how quickly a studio can lose the trust of its most loyal fans, and how a rising star can tarnish her own image with a few poorly worded sound bites. Disney poured $250 million into what was meant to be a surefire hit, only to watch it implode under the weight of fan outrage, questionable creative decisions, and a PR tour that seemed to blame the audience for loving the wrong version of an old tale. In the end, this controversy speaks to more than just a single film's failure. It highlights the tension between preserving classic stories and updating them for a new era. It questions whether constant reboots and reimaginings are wearing down even the most devoted fans. Most of all, it shows that when a corporation treats nostalgia like a guaranteed money-printing machine, audiences will eventually reject it, especially if they sense a lack of sincerity. Whether Rachel Zegler finds a second act and whether Disney mends its relationship with longtime fans remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, the story of the Snow White remake has become a cautionary tale for everyone in Hollywood. Sometimes you can't just rely on a famous title and flashy marketing. Sometimes the audience wants respect for tradition alongside genuine innovation. And when you fail to deliver both, the fallout can be profound and far-reaching, bad enough to put a rising star's future in jeopardy and make a legendary studio question its own direction. So, was this an inevitable disaster? Or could the outcome have been different if the filmmakers had stuck closer to what made the 1937 classic so enduring? Let us know what you think. Because love or hate the final product, one fact remains: this fiasco won't be forgotten anytime soon. It's a stark reminder that the magic of Snow White didn't come from ticking off modern checklists. It came from heart, wonder, and the timeless hope that fairy tales, at their core, can still enchant us all.